Hello, and welcome to the Nebraska Department of Education School Safety video series. Today's topic is links to mental health. Other topics in this video series include the climate connection, school climate data in action, school safety, it begins with us, the behavior bond, optimization of youth voice, and school safety and student success. These video vignettes will be anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes in length, and they can be watched by school staff members as individuals or by school teams. They also can be watched in order or non-sequentially, dependent upon school needs. My name is Heather Robbins, and I'll be your guide throughout this video series. Today's topic is links to mental health. We hope that by the end of our short time together, you're able to define mental health. You're able to describe the connection between school safety and mental health, and that you consider prevention and supports for students on your campus. What is mental health? Here's a definition from mentalhealth.gov. Mental health is our emotional, social, and psychological well-being. It's how a person thinks, acts, and feels. Mental health is not simply the absence of mental illness. Why is this important to us? Well, let's take a moment to reflect on some statistics from Protecting America's Schools, a U.S. Secret Service analysis of targeted school violence. 40% of students who engaged in egregious acts of school violence on our campuses had a documented mental health diagnosis prior to their attack. 69% displayed observable psychological symptoms prior to their attack. And most importantly, 100% of the attackers experienced some form of a stressor within 6 months prior to their attack, and 75% of those within 1 month prior to their attack. Now, these stressors included a broad range of type of stressor, but they had a common theme, and a common theme amongst the stressor was some form of loss. The stressor may have been a family stressor, a social stressor, an academic stressor, perhaps a disciplinary stressor, changing schools, involvement with juvenile justice, a physical health stressor, or an employment stressor. But a common theme amongst those stressors is that the student experienced some form of loss within 6 months to 1 month of their attack. Now, just a caution here, we're talking about links to mental health. Not all students who engaged in targeted school violence had mental health issues. There is no one profile. What we want you to consider is what supports do you have in place for any student on your campus that may have a mental health need or that may experience any form of stressor. What supports do you have? We want you to be thinking about prevention on your campus. Here are a few more statistics about mental health in youth. This comes from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. In terms of diagnosed depression and anxiety in youth, we see that we have less in elementary school, and then diagnosis of depression and anxiety spike and increase as youth move from elementary to middle and high school. The American Academy of Family Physicians has put out a position paper, and they've said mental health supports should be available for all students who need them. Why? Because untreated mental health conditions are associated with poor academic performance, misconduct, school dropout, unemployment, involvement with juvenile justice, and violence. High schoolers who feel less safe at school have more emotional problems. So we're looking at the links between school safety and mental health. And we saw that in terms of egregious acts of school safety, targeted school violence, there's a direct link to mental health and stressors. But we also see that simply when students feel less safe at school, they have more emotional problems. Another link. Adolescents who had more frequent perceived school unsafety suffered mental health problems more often. Higher safety concerns are related to mental health problems, such as symptoms of depression, anxiety, and suicidality. On the flip side, students who feel safe at school exhibit fewer depressive symptoms. So we need to be considering the link between school safety and mental health, both in terms of acts of targeted school violence, but also when our schools feel safer, students have less mental health or emotional problems. Feeling safe at school was the strongest protective factor for student well-being, which is defined as the presence of positive emotions and moods and the absence of negative emotions and moods. Feeling safe was the strongest protective factor of student well-being in the first year of secondary school. And we know from a wealth of national data that ninth grade can be a tough transition for youth, academically and behaviorally, and feeling safe at school is a big protective factor for their well-being during that tough transition. So, we want you to remember, we're talking about the link between school safety and mental health. And we want to go back and say, when students feel safe at school, we have less emotional problems on our campus. So we want to consider what makes students feel safe at school. And two key factors for students in feeling safe at school is our school climate and school connectedness. So as you watch this video series, you're going to see a common theme about climate and connectedness and the link to every other topic. So we'd like you to consider some questions about your campus. We'd like you to ask yourself these questions. How do we all know all students are connected to at least one adult on our campus? Because when students are connected, they feel safer. When they feel safer, they have less emotional problems. And thus, we have a higher level of school safety. What do we know about our school climate? How have we assessed that so that we can ensure that students feel safe on our campus, so we can reduce emotional problems? And also, what supports do we have on our campus for any student who may have a mental health need or who experiences a stressor of any kind? How do we know students are experiencing stressors? If students are connected with adults, we're going to know. If students are not connected with adults, we're not going to know about their stressors. So we need to make that connection between connectedness, climate, mental health, and safety. And we have to consider prevention. What do we have in place? How do we know? How does a student on our campus know where to go or who to turn to if they have a need of some sort or if they're experiencing a stressor? We'd like for you to consider these questions. So we hope that in our short time together, you've defined mental health. It's our social, emotional, and psychological well-being. It's how we think, act, and feel. We hope that you could describe the connection between school safety and mental health. We have students who engage in egregious acts of targeted school violence, and frequently they've had mental health symptoms. They've 100% of the time experienced some form of stressor, and that stressor was often a loss. On the flip side, when students feel safe at school, they have less emotional problems, they have less depressive symptoms. There is a direct link between school safety and mental health. And we hope that you started to consider what prevention and supports do you have in place on your campus for students? How do you know students are connected to an adult? And how do students on your campus know where to get supports if they're experiencing a stressor? We hope you've enjoyed this short video vignette, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thank you.